Hey, this is Maria from MAITA, and I'm hanging out with Rob of Front Row Live.
We're getting even closer to the release of your sophomore record, and as you get closer to release day, and I mean also release week, like what really goes on behind the scenes that fans might not know about?
Gosh, well, there's a lot this time around. There's actually a lot of prepping that we're doing. It's kind of overwhelming, just because we are leaving on a tour, like directly the day after the album comes out, basically. So it's kind of this double thing where we have to balance like getting people excited about the record itself and then also getting people excited about the tour and getting the word out for that and packing and practicing playing the record, and it's a whole process and I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but yeah, it's happening.
Now, dive me into the creative process of this album, and how different was it? First of all, how different was it from your debut album? And second of all, like, do you feel that there was a major evolution compared to your debut album?
In terms of the recording of the albums themselves, there was a big difference. The first record we recorded out at this theater, with our friend Bart Budwig, and it was all in the same room together because we didn't quite know what the album was going to sound like yet. We had never played with a full band before and had no idea that the songs were going to be the way that they were. And then with this record, because we knew the band better, we knew the songs better, we had a firmer grasp on what we wanted that record to sound like going into it. I think we were a little bit more focused. Um, and we ended up recording it with Matthew Zeltzer, who is in the band and manages the project with me. And then just had like our bass player, Nevada Soul, assistant engineer it, which was really fun because it was just all in the family and it just felt like recording an album in a basement, except that basement happened to be a recording studio with really nice gear.
Now, the fact that it was recorded and produced in house, in a sense, how does that? How are you guys able to step out of your comfort zone to kind of be better this time around? Usually when a producer steps in, that's majority of their job. It's getting you guys to try new things and kind of
Yeah.
get out of your comfort zone. But when you're doing it as a band, you guys are so comfortable with each other. So how does that kind of play out?
I mean, I kind of feel like for me, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, is the more comfortable you are, the more risks you're going to be taking. And I think that if we were working with a producer and we were working in like a different setting that was unfamiliar to us, um, I think we would feel a lot more pressure and maybe not take as many risks and not be willing to go down as many rabbit holes in when we come up with production ideas. And um, I think that a lot of times those are the ideas that end up really paying off. And if you don't feel comfortable enough to try those, even if they might fail, you end up with like something that maybe is a lot safer, but isn't the full like the band at its full potential. So I think it's actually better this way.
Now the album is titled "I Just Want to Be Wild with You" or "Wild for You." When did this album? When did the writing process kind of begin for you? And did you already have the theme of the album, the identity of the album in mind as you were starting to write it, or was this something that kind of showed up as you guys were in the studio recording it already?
Um, so I write all the songs and or I write all the lyrics and melodies before we take it to the studio. And um, I was writing, I guess, basically as soon as we recorded the last record, whatever songs I had written after that, I was like, okay, I already know this will be for the next record. And I had that in my head. And it was just about like, as we were gathering all of those songs together to say this is what's going to be on the record, I started to think about the theme that linked them all together. So it was kind of, it wasn't like I was writing for a theme, I just looked at all the songs and I was like, oh, it seems to be that this certain topic is really fascinating to me, and this is why I want to be writing about these things. Um, and it was kind of in the aftermath that that emerged.
No, I love how you, so far on the songs that have been released, I love how you give us this mixture of like sweet guitar tones for a song like Loneliness, and then you give us this like punky kind of vibe for a song like You Sure Can Kill a Sunday Part 1. So tell me about like these dynamics of these songs and kind of the recording process, especially
Mhm.
as a singer. How does these dynamics kind of change the flow of how you record your vocals during those sessions?
Yeah. So first of all, I guess I'll start by saying that dynamics have always been a huge part of our band, and starting just going back to even just the first EP, I feel like I write songs alone, and so I don't have like the sound of a band in my head, and the songs that I write could go in many directions. It could be folk, it could be rock. Sometimes I don't even know until we get to the studio. And one thing that I really love about our bands that we work with is that we're all songwriters on our own. And so when we think about a song, we're not thinking about like, oh, okay, this is the sound of our band. We're thinking like, oh, this is as a songwriter, this is like this is what the song needs. And it's like we've never been like a band that has like a really, really distinct sonic sound, I would say. It's more like how can we honor every single emotion and every high and low in the songs on their own. And so that's why you end up with some songs that are very soft and sweet, and some songs that are a little bit louder and more abrasive or cathartic. And I think that's just because that's the feeling that we're trying to honor in each individual song. And as a singer, I just do my best to try to convey that emotion as faithfully as I can, you know, like try to push it when it needs to be pushed, and lay back and be relaxed and gentle when it needs to be gentle, and um, do everything I can to serve the emotion.
Now we have 11 tracks on this album. Out of these tracks, I know you mentioned that some of them were left over from the debut album, but from these 11 tracks, like which one would you say that really challenged either you personally or the band as a whole the most? And you know, what kind of challenge did you guys have with that particular song?
Mhm. Well, the title track, I guess, "Wild for You," which is the last one on the album, that one was the one that was left over from the last record. And that was just challenging because, like, we didn't get it on the first pass, right? Like, we tried to put it on Best Wishes, and we are like, "We just don't have it." And then the second time around, we re-recorded it. Other than that, I'm trying to think. So on Wild for You, I guess Ex-Wife would be the one that was the hardest, just because it's got 2 parts, kind of, 2 acts, and the first part is that kind of weary, melancholic, and then the second half is this release, this almost jubilant release, but fitting those 2 pieces together was really, really difficult, and I think that ended up trying I we there were a few, like, tense moments in the studio of just trying to figure it out, like, how do these 2 pieces work together? Are we even sold that this is how it's supposed to be? How do we end the song? And I think we like, you know, I don't, maybe this is a spoiler, but, like, the song ends pretty abruptly, and, that was also just, like, a decision that we made together, and it just went through a lot of different iterations, but, I'm happy with where we ended up.
What was it about this song that you believed in it, no matter like those challenges that you were facing with it to finalize it?
I this song is just really, I guess it's just really important to me emotionally. It felt it just felt really right. Um I guess it felt like kind of a risk that I really wanted to see through, just because of the like 2 parts, and also just the theme of it. Like, I was working at this I had this job, and there's this coworker who'd come in and complain about his wife all the time, and eventually they did get divorced, and I started to think a lot about like the modern marriage, and like what it means to be a wife, and then what it means to be an ex-wife, and that kind of got me thinking about my own childhood, and My parents divorced when I was like 9, and so like my mother was the ex-wife for a long time. And so it's just thinking about that identity and that word and in our country is just very charged. And it's this kind of like, especially in the setting that I was hearing about it, which was this like office setting. Um, I just wanted to expand more upon it, and then it ended up being this meditation on women's role in a marriage, and even also a bit about like an Asian woman's role in a marriage. Just thinking about my mom, thinking about this person, um, and that, and then of course your own emotions come through every time you write a song, even if you're trying to write about someone else. So it was just important to me. So I pushed it through. I like persevered.
It sounds like even though you had these personal experiences in your life about as far as the topic goes of the song, like it sounds like you still had to somewhat do some kind of research to kind of navigate through all the other themes that you kind of talked about throughout it. Do you find yourself doing that a lot when you're writing material? Like, do you find yourself doing some extra research just to make sure that your lyrics and everything is like to the T?
I wouldn't call it research. I guess I don't really actually I would say I don't do any research. That's why I kind of like to keep things a little like I would never call it like a historically accurate song, or like I would never I call it everything's an interpretation, which is just kind of a way of releasing yourself from the constraint of having to be factual or having to try to capture something exactly as it is the truth. And so I like to say things are inspired by stories, but I wouldn't say I just keep my ear open, and I'm listening for things that happen around me that resonate with me emotionally, and then um, put it all together with bits and pieces of perhaps other things. But because I'm not trying to, publish a scholarly article, I feel like I don't, I wouldn't call it research. I would just call it inspiration.
What are you most proud of as far as this album goes?
Hmm. Um, I guess I'm just proud of the album as a whole. I'm proud of the fact that I think we did right by every song on it, and we really all everyone involved just um, made such cool and creative choices, and I think we took a decent amount of risks, which is I think really important. And I'm proud that we were able to do that together and pull it off. And I do think it works well together, and I'm excited for people to hear it.
Lastly, on release day, the band is also heading out on their North American run in support of the album. So, for your fans out there, what can they look forward to on these performances?
Yeah, so I would say just be ready for like a high highs and low lows. I think that when we're live, we really get caught up in that emotional journey and that sonic journey. So um, I think that the louder parts are going to feel louder, the quieter parts are going to feel quieter, because we're just really trying to honor that space that every song has and make sure that it feels right. So um, that's what people can expect.
Amazing. Well, congratulations. Sophomore record dropping February 18th and tour coming up same day. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and best of luck on tour.
Thank you so much.